Okay, well, we'll get started. Just so we use our time wisely, I'll get started by just doing a quick overview of some of the things that Repairing Schools has going on. Again, it's pretty much the same stuff you guys have heard, but just a reminder that we do have applications open for our RE Plus conference experience. And that's going to be a super fun event. We hope that you can join us. It does include a hotel room and a free conference pass. And then we get to go to the career fair and we'll provide some industry meetups. So you get some one-on-one time with industry outside of the craziness of the show floor. Maybe Dan will be there. Maybe we'll get to see Dan. Um, and then a reminder that all of our sessions are recorded so that we can share them on our YouTube channel for those of us who are not able to attend. And so this is just a quick glimpse of our YouTube channel. Just know that we have these sessions, but we also have lots of other things there for you to check out. So please feel free to do that. And unless you guys have any questions for me on those sorts of things, I will ask for you students to introduce yourselves, and then we'll hand it over to Dan to chat with you. So, Alina, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'm Melina. I'm a rising sophomore, and I go to the Johns Hopkins University and I major in computer science. I competed with my college wind team at the collegiate wind competition last month. So my interest still focuses on wind, but I'm also interested in learning more about solar. Yeah.
And Jake, if you don't mind.
Okay. My name is Jake Sanders. I'm a rising senior at JMU studying engineering with a big interest in sustainable energy. So this summer I'm interning for JMU's CASE office, which is the Center for Advancement of Sustainable Energy. Just trying to get as much exposure as I can to the industry.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys both for being here and taking time out of your busy summer schedules. And with that, I would love to introduce you guys to Dan. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I feel like you may have some slides that you want to share.
Yeah,
And
thanks,
I think you
Miss
have permission
Pangle.
now.
Jacob, Alina, let me see if I can figure this out. All right. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Um, so thanks. Appreciate y'all being here and your interest. I'm gonna run through a lot of slides. It kind of cut something from another deck, which was titled thus Re-energizing Rural America and Empowering Local Food Systems. So this is kind of a story about more than solar, Alina, kind of a fusion of a lot of technologies. And I think that's one of the bigger takeaways. All these things are coming together. When I was your age, it wasn't so connected, maybe. And that's one of the great stories. There's just so much synergy today. So I just was hanging out with Remy at the Virginia Solar Summit. We had student passes. We'll be back next year in Richmond. I'm not sure where you're located, but that was a great show. And we got into solar grazing and some of these other things I'm going to be talking about. The big Brownfield show is coming up. That's EPA's big show. Brownfields is always 99-0 in the Senate, one of those things that people agree about. And then we have the Virginia Solar Summit. We do the Solar Farm Summit as well. And it's actually co-located with EPA's Brownfield show this year. If you're interested in attending that, we also have scholarships available and student passes. So I don't know if you want to sneak up to Chicago for a lot of real estate redevelopment
Yeah, if
and
you send
solar.
me links to that, I'll happily share that when I
Ah,
send out the video link.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, come one, come all. Very substantive program in downtown Chicago. Pretty awesome. Our cousin conference in Virginia, though, is coming back September 30 there. It gets started at the Convention Center in Richmond, the Virginia Clean Energy Summit, which is not just solar, it's kind of all things clean energy in Virginia. Highly recommend that one. I'll be there. Maybe Remy will be there. I see her there often. And then I'll kind of get into some of my remarks, but I don't like to do this bio slide. But since I'm talking to young minds, this is a little bit of about me and some of my journey. I practice, so Dan French, I practice something I like to call functional from Illinois. I moved around a lot, but a lot of downstate Illinois. Went to the University of Illinois, studied economics. Got an extra year of law school. I do have a master's of law, although if you can laugh because I don't even practice law anymore. I had a great run though, and it led to everything I'm doing now. And so you never know what, as you go forward and acquire skills, you never know what craft is going to be leveraged later, especially as I said, because everything is starting to stack and synergize together. And we're so siloed, I'll just mention, being this interdisciplinary person, I have that word up on the screen. That's where a lot of the value can be seen. Like so many of us are so hyper focused. Some of us who can kind of peek around the silos may see value and opportunities that others do not. And so that's just the whole thing. I guess that's what I do. I'm a strategist for strategists. I'm quite shy actually, but a lot of my work you'll see in the work product of others. So again, old real estate lawyer, kind of farm kid, and not just solar. I'm still not a solar developer. I've really done just a lot of brownfields work and commercial development, factories, industrial sites, Superfund sites, military bases, and so on. Remy, should I stop and let everyone introduce themselves as they join, or should I just power through?
Yeah, if you want to stop and let Nicholas say hi since he just joined us, that'd be great. Or we
If
just
he's
lost him.
too shy, that's okay too.
Okay.
Right along, Nicholas. All right. All right, so into some of the substance. I'm going to throw a lot at you and go fast. Feel free, look forward to kind of your questions. I'll leave time at the end, but I will rip through a whole bunch of slides. They call it an energy emergency. President Trump did. It was one of his first day items, and it's kind of about price. So this is from the pandemic. We had one of the biggest jumps in electricity prices of all time, and uh, consumers were paying, adjusted for inflation, as much for energy as we've ever paid. So that's kind of in the big background. Here you can see from EIA data, more recent from the year. I should update this slide, but prices have kind of recovered. Wholesale prices have recovered, but those real prices are sticky, and residential prices more so than wholesale power. So consumers are paying more and still more. And right before the Virginia Solar Summit, in fact, Dominion released the news that they're raising the base rate for the first time since 1992. If you're in Virginia, the data center capital of the world, this is not news to you, but we've had this thing, a demand boom. These damn NVIDIA chips. It actually started with this guy, right? EVs, the battery wars have broken out. It's now another race to the bottom. These technology trees are off and innovating, and costs are coming down. The right kind of deflation. So back we saw this kind of coming right a while ago, and DOE had put a lot of smart people together, and they were able to publish this report September 2021, the Solar Futures Study, wondering, pondering, like, oh, how high could energy demand get? Because for the last few decades, energy demand's actually been pretty flat. Conservation technology has been a big success story. Light bulbs, everything has saved a lot of electrons. An electron saved is an electron earned, and that's kept demand flat. But with EVs and batteries, we were thinking, oh, maybe we'll have 2% annual demand growth, and that would add up to a lot over time. But this is dated now. This is before AI, really, September 2021. So there he is, Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA. And that's actually the newer one that pulls more than 700 watts per chip, which is a little bit more than the average US home, but about a US home. So each chip is a US home. And 100,000 chips in one of these medium-sized data centers. There they are in Virginia. Northern Virginia is absolutely the digital beating brain of the global digital world. But notice also about halfway down this chart, you'll notice Southern Virginia makes the list all on its own. So Virginia really is kind of a special place, a lot of power demand. I'll skip through this, but it's clustering there in Northern Virginia. Some of these counties are making out huge, and this is a look forward from one of the more recent meetings in Prince William County, just to point out that they've zoned a lot that they haven't even built yet. So this, a lot of this is not projection. This is in the pipeline, and it's coming. That's what it looks like on the left. Probably no surprise to a younger audience. But surprising everyone are these revisions up. The demand forecasts are being revised up. And here you can see on the right, FERC, adding 128 gigawatts of new supply that we're going to need in pretty short order. How are we going to build this stuff? We don't know. There was a special joint legislative committee commissioned in Virginia to study what might happen. And in a scenario they described as unconstrained demand. So we just let the free market build as many data centers as they want, as kind of, projecting from where we are now on up, and demand in Virginia could triple by 2040. Shocking demand growth to professionals of all ages. And this is Dominion Energy from its quarterly report released earlier this year, where they revised their own forecast up. So on the left column, you can see just their own self-reported number in July 2024, 21.4 gigawatts anticipated demand, but they revised up by the end of the year over that 6 months, not quite doubled, an extra 19 gigawatts, though 88%. Some of that was paperwork. Some of it was get in line now for stuff we're going to do many years later. But still, it jumped off the page to a lot of people. And you might be saying, Dan, but what about DeepSeek? We're reading about this. What about that conservation technology that you mentioned? Are we really going to need all this power? And I think so. So not to get too esoteric with y'all, but I have a special passion for the history of economics, and what's happening now does kind of fit within this larger sweep of humans moving up the staircase of technologies, if you will, from animals to machinery to molecules and to electrons. And so it's not just the data centers, it's the EVs, but even manufacturing. If we really zoom in on a lot of the new industrial facilities that are being permitted and built today, they're using more and more electrons versus molecules versus, diesel fuel or coal or anything, because it's more efficient. It's goes down to the molecular level, the atomic level. The electrons, there's less friction. You can store electrons in batteries. You can generate with solar panels on site, or you can build a gas turbine on site. Electrons just work better in all kinds of technologies. And as we project forward, it just looks like we have stepped over this threshold now, where all I see as a professional doing this every day, working with some of the largest funds in the world, is energy demand as far as the eye can see. What are we going to build? That's the problem. Can we build it fast enough? And where and what and how? We got to permit it. We got to get it built before prices go up. So inflation is the dirty word. Energy inflation, most of all. We're very excited in Virginia. A new generation of nuclear technology is busting out the small modular reactors. Fusion. We had a fusion session at the Virginia Solar Summit, if you can believe it. Maybe the only solar conference in the world. Maybe I would like to believe that, or not. I hope everybody's going with what works, but drawing a green box around solar, wind, and battery systems, which in some combination, that's what is appealing to investors. Because it works, we can deploy it quickly and cheaply. So no surprise, looking at this chart, you can kind of see how solar and batteries are just eating up most of the installed capacity. So this is where the money goes. Money flows like water, the path of least resistance. And that's why solar and storage is kind of winning and being deployed. Again, we can see the reasons why, like it continues to. So this is technology that continues to improve. This is for you. Miss Wind, the wind technology is improving, especially offshore, which we know about in Virginia. These markets are really yet to mature, and they're getting bigger and bigger, but we're still learning a lot of these lessons. And on the next kind of technology cycles, we expect to see these costs continue to come down. And even fixed access PV, though, which has been around for a long time, is still falling at a pretty good clip in the most recent levelized cost of energy report, which you can see here, minus 2% for fixed access. And again, as they're getting cheaper and better, and they kind of go together. So a lot of room yet to go, and we've done a lot to catch up. So kind of big news from SIA and Wood Mackenzie. We have just about enough American solar panel manufacturing now to satisfy all U.S. demand. Just about. Some of these factories are closing. I won't get into the politics of all that. But one of our terawatt sponsors in Virginia this year was Solarix, a new American-owned, made by Virginia for Virginia panel manufacturer, going into that facility right there that you can see behind their beautiful logo. And that is a brownfield redevelopment, actually. It was an old Teva pharmaceutical facility being refit with the next stuff. Now shifting into some kind of the needs, though, this is one of my favorite charts. You can go find this, the Distressed Communities Index, which pulls a lot of census data, county level data, and gives this view of the United States in terms of distress. And what I want to point out is that our jobs, a lot of our economic growth, I think the NASDAQ making all-time high yesterday, record corporate profits, millions of open jobs, but a lot of the growth has clustered in denser places. So the more dense, the more growth as a general rule, and that's left a lot less for everybody else. And so since the Great Recession, only about 25% of jobs, a quarter of jobs, have been available to the bottom 60% of zip codes, which is a lot. And if you go back to the dot-com crash, when I was coming out of school, the internet, y'all are too young to remember that. But these distressed communities have experienced net zero business formation, business establishment since 2000. Which is embarrassing and shocking. We have these chronic structural issues in some of our communities. And yes, they're less populated. And, sometimes folks think, oh, it's just flyover territory. Nobody cares. It's not impacting a lot of people. No, distressed and at-risk communities. So that next level, that's almost 115 million Americans. And it matters in life expectancy. If you're in one of these at-risk communities, you're going to die 5 years faster. Unfortunately, there's a lot of reasons for that. I can't get to. I won't bug you with all the charts and reasons why, and cancer clusters and all kinds of environmental reasons and other reasons. But some have, they're paying too much for their electricity. They don't even have internet. The kids have all left. Maybe resource depletion is a real thing, or excessive pollution or vacancy. But these are real problems, and we need real answers, or we're going to continue to struggle. Farming continues to struggle. Big crisis that kind of repeats. I care about a lot of this, but part of the troubleshooting in rural America is this larger trend working against American agriculture, and farms have kind of gotten bigger and bigger, and more farmers are kind of getting pushed out. And you can see here, this is the most recent census of agriculture, actually, from the USDA. And you got to go back to basically Abraham Lincoln to find fewer farmers in the United States. And we'll only mention climate change to say I won't mention it. I'm going to talk about desertification, really, because there's just no doubt the planet's getting drier, whatever the reason. 77.6 of the planet, 77.6% of the planet is drier, and very recent drying. 1/3 of global aquifers are in distress. 21 of the 37 largest are in precipitous decline. Not a new story. Y'all are too young to remember this. Live Aid, a big famine in Africa in the 80s, and it came back in 87. We thought we'd kind of solve the problem, but the rains failed to come, and we're still solving for this problem. So the Horn of Africa, just a region plagued by drought. There you can see from 2011 and 2022, big bad droughts back again. There's Lake Chad on the left in 1973. There was Lake Chad. Tremendous generational desertification. Some of it has to do with overexploitation, but Lake Chad is down 90% since the 1960s. And if you dry out, you die out. It's not just happening in Africa, as you saw in one of the previous slides. It's happening all over the world. So desertification in Asia is a thing. Here's the Aral Sea. There was the Aral Sea. Old story here in America too. I know you were taught this in school, right? Everyone knows the American Dust Bowl. It took a decade, really, a lot of bad policy. There was a rainy period out west, right? But then it all kind of went bad on Black Sunday, and we lost almost an uncalculable amount of irreplaceable topsoil. We responded overwhelmingly. It actually came at a pretty good time, right in the meat of the depression, in a bad way, but it put a lot of people to work. And we started something that was then called the Soil Erosion Service, that now is called the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Planted a lot of trees. There they are in the depression. Windbreaks. But again, not a new problem, or we didn't solve for this problem. This was last month up by my aunt's house in New Lenox, Illinois. We had a flash dust bowl on May 16th. Dry conditions. It happened actually a couple years ago. This is from 2023, and you can see it's pretty wet out west where they had the Dust Bowl back in the day. But the Midwest was drying out and dying out, as it were. And on Monday, May 1st, I graduated high school from a little town outside Springfield, Illinois, here on I-55 South. And that flash drought created a flash dust bowl, and there was a pileup on I-55, and 7 sexy science. And y'all are probably up on this, but people are often shocked to learn. I mean, we got 500 gigatons of carbon in the soil. It's actually 75% of all the carbon on land. There is more in the oceans. That's the biggest carbon sink, but in the soil is 3 times more carbon than all the plants and animals added up together on the earth. So there's a lot happening down there. So kind of putting all this together, I'm getting now finally to kind of agrivoltaics. So problem solving with solar. I got into solar because I saw somebody put them on a landfill. I was like, oh, we can't do anything else. Of course, we should put solar panels on all the landfills in the world, and the mined lands, the Superfund sites. Some of these places we really can't do anything else. That stacking that value makes all kinds of sense. And it turns out we can solve other problems with solar. Solar can do more than generate the kilowatts. Even the shade, we've figured out how to leverage shade as an asset to add value to agriculture. So that's what agrivoltaics is. It's the fusion of agriculture and photovoltaics. It kind of has these different setups, and it's solving for what I think is one of the great enemies, desertification. I've kind of been battling this most of my life and some of my work around the world. And I think agrivoltaics is a big part of the answer. The breakthrough American results came at Biosphere 2, where under the solar panels, they tripled the pepper yields using half the water. And they doubled the tomato yields using 2/3 of the water. And the jalapenos just kind of hung in there. So you can grow things under solar panels. Some things do better, and they need a lot less water. That evapotranspiration, which I failed to mention on the last slide. Plants sweat, it turns out. While they're cooling themselves with water like humans, they can't grow. And their fruit and vegetables can't grow either. So cooling them off is the secret sauce. Here's the study. You can find it. So I love this headline: Solar is a stack of energy, water, and food benefits. And shout out Professor Greg Barron-Gafford, University of Arizona. You can go find this paper. He did a lot of the early work in the United States, fleshing out this energy, food, water nexus, which is not just good for the food and just unbelievable water conservation potential, but it keeps the panels cooler too and generates more electricity that way. Because if the panels get too hot, their performance also suffers. So this is a little graphic from NREL, Agrivoltaics 101. We can really integrate solar power production all across the farm in all kinds of different setups, even vertical solar fencing. It's becoming a thing. And ecovoltaics, which is becoming a thing. I'll get back to that, but it's solving for something that's really hurting the solar boom right now, is what is perceived to be this trade-off. You can either do agriculture or you can do solar energy, and agrivoltaics puts them both together. It was Fraunhofer Institute over in Germany back in the early 80s that first had this idea, and they put potatoes together, and you can make these different trade-offs. A little bit less of a potential solar footprint on the farm, but the potatoes maybe get a bump. So I'm going to show you some of that now, just a really quick world tour. I hope some of you are of drinking age. If you're in the, or maybe you're in the wine business or know somebody, you know, those grapes are sensitive, especially to make high quality grapes. And as the planet is drying out, you know, making great wine is becoming a thing. But under the panels, this is a vineyard in France, a most recent harvest, solar trellises above this vineyard and truss array. The Chardonnay was plus 60% yield. with a lot less inputs. Here it is, zooming out, and you can see some more results. Tremendous irrigation savings, and there was a frost, and it actually, the panels kept the grapes a little bit cooler. And so it saved a whole season of production because the frost loss, and I think it was this plot, was reduced by half, which that just pencils full stop. So we need to start thinking about this, maybe like open air greenhouses. And I'll just show you for the non-wine drinkers, maybe college kids, you're all oriented towards the hops. They have raised them up 30 feet over the hops in Germany with really good results. There will be wine and beer in the future. I'll show you this 5-year study from Minnesota, Argonne National Labs. We can create incredible bee and butterfly oases with solar if you plant the right things. Native vegetation, wildflowers, nature, if you build it, they will come. And they tripled the insect population after 5 years. And the native bee population was, as you can see, plus 20x. And that actually increases yields of farms and gardens nearby. If you have these ideal pollinator habitats, they drift. You can draw that circle on the map. And you notice the last bit there about this is, there's been some studies referencing back to the Soil Erosion Service, right? And the NRCS, they have something called the Conservation Resource Program. Sometimes we put land into conservation and plant prairie grass. And this study is very analogous to what we're doing on millions of acres already in the United States. So the solar and conservation go together like peas and carrots. And I just love this headline from Bloomberg a few years ago: throwing shade is solar energy's new superpower. And farmers all over the world are figuring out how to adapt this new farm implement, open air greenhouse, whatever you want to call it. It can be configured in all kinds of different ways, more or less sunlight, different kinds of panels, different kinds of heights, trackers. And we can start to work backwards almost from the agriculture that's already in place, or maybe do new and different things. Here are mustard greens and matcha in Japan. Here's an awesome shot of raspberries in the Netherlands. And here's that raspberry patch. Again, if you happen to know people in the fruit business, these polytunnels that you can see up in the top right, plastic, that you got to replace those every few years, maybe 4 years, 5 years. But with some hardware and storms, you may have to replace them sooner. And so, glass panels, it's mostly glass, holds up much better. More permanent on-farm infrastructure that we need anyway, that just happens to generate kilowatts. You can go find this story. Italy, north of Africa, there is bearing the brunt of desertification, this great drying out of the planet Earth. And at this project, they've returned some historic fruit production to southern Italy, citron. Again, here's some solar fences. You can go in between the rows. Here's wheat in Germany. Pumpkins in Taiwan. And this is, I think, the largest agrivoltaics farm in the world, in Ningxia in China. This is goji berries. Lots and lots of goji berries, 1 gigawatt worth. That's really big, and it's in Western China, as you can see here. China's going whole hog on this, to use as many agricultural puns as I can, because as some folks don't know, they have precious little fresh water. Only 6% of the world's fresh water, even though they have 20% of the people. So they're critically water scarce, and they've been battling the deserts for most of Chinese history. They've discovered a way to conserve water without using it. So solar panels just take the edge off the sun, hold more soil, hold more water in the soil. And with a combination now of sand locking technologies and bushes and trees and these solar panels, they are making much more recent progress, defeating the deserts in China. And it's real terraforming. And the Taklamakan Desert now, they've claimed recently in press, has been successfully ring fenced. Will they cover it all with solar panels? We don't know. Further west, you can see they're going big here by the Longyang Gorge Reservoir. Excuse me. And we had a before and after. I don't think I brought it. I apologize. But in 10 years, this was basically nothing. It was a desertified grassland. And this is what it looks like more recently. They've basically covered the valley floor and returned shepherds in Western China to a restored grassland. Hey, Dan, what about full sun plants? Can you grow everything under solar panels? You're from Illinois. What about corn? Well, it turns out you can grow full sun plants under solar panels. I didn't know this. I'm not a botanist, but nothing uses 100% of the day's light, not even corn. And at this recent pilot in Tanzania, they actually increased corn yields. The cob lengths were a little shorter, but the survival rate was greater. And so net, they increased corn yields under solar panels in Africa. Quite shocking, maybe to some. So as we're thinking about like this combination, this incredible nexus of energy, food, water, it gets very exciting to think of the types of functionality and performance and value that we can take anywhere in the world off the grid. And this is a lovely little graphic from Fraunhofer Institute, starting to think about, wow, what could we really start to build, even on a very small scale, this kind of innovative high performance infrastructure. So I wish I had more time to kind of get into some of the, food issues and problems. How are we going to feed the world? There's been a major crop failure somewhere in the world every year for, I think, 20 years in a row. But we basically have this opportunity to mix and match. Rural America and many marginal communities all over the world, they have land, they need investment capital, and they have some agriculture in place, even if it's hanging on. Solar developers have money, lots of money. There's a solar tsunami, but they need land. And if done the right way, they can actually enable agriculture. So the two can really go together. We're trying to marry them up in mutually beneficial ways. If you're hip to what's happening in solar at all, you see a lot more community rejections, particularly in Virginia. People don't want to see farms taken under for solar panels. Some people don't like the look of it. Maybe that's enough. But if we can do both and to the mutual advantage of both, then we've maybe solved for this land use conflict and everybody wins. So we can start to match up. We can go one by one. For insufficient tax revenue, we need more tax revenue. For insufficient poor infrastructure, we need more infrastructure, and not to oversell it, but we can really kind of agrivoltaics, this stack of value that agrivoltaics can provide. A special kind of economic development, which is just about growing from within rather than trying to attract a factory from out of state, with placemaking. So if we investigate our communities, get closer, figure out what they need, it's not, again, not all these things, maybe there's a university though that's thinking about adding a food testing lab. And if they do it at this community space, then maybe the community can get a few extra stalls and everybody wins, or food bank, or all these things. But the marrying up this large scale capital investment with matched local development opportunities is kind of something new and a little bit more thoughtful. But we're trying to get private industry to slow down a little bit. You read, they're buying fire trucks and they're doing all these different things, and this is just kind of a bigger process of trying to an objective process to fill gaps in communities and give them what they need. So as I kind of wind down, just want to show you this is happening, not really theoretical. We've got over 10,000 megawatts of this stuff in the United States, almost 65,000 acres. A lot of it is livestock. A lot of it is sheep under the panels, kind of the perfect little gentle grazers, a lot of pollinator habitat. Solar is paying for a lot of prairie restoration in the Midwest and Illinois, as you can see there. I think they're down to like less than 1% of the natural prairie, and there's nothing else really that's paying for prairie restoration, but solar is. Jack's Solar Garden, I'm going to be there Saturday. Yeah, I'm leaving for Denver tomorrow morning to go to a conference. I'm staying an extra day because I've never actually been to probably America's most famous, maybe the first solar community garden out in Longmont, Colorado. It's called Jack's Solar Garden. You should go and check it out. It's a
We're
grant.
going as part of our ACES Solar Student Symposium.
Yeah, awesome. Great story about a kind of a grandson rekindling the legacy of his grandpa's hay farm with his dad and on their kind of homestead there. I don't know if they still live there. I'm going to learn about it myself on Saturday. And more than just the agriculture, more than just the kilowatts, they've brought in this community engagement piece. The agritourism is something that saved a lot of farms. Pumpkin patches, U-picks, but weddings, little venue spaces, right? At Jack's, they bring in local artists sometimes. I think they do some yoga classes. They've also been smart to bring in some of those university researchers, all kinds of different ways to kind of make it as a farm, as a small farm today in America, as these large global forces sweep. Virginia's getting one. Piedmont Environmental Council at their existing community garden there in Aldi, Roundabout Meadows, I think it's called. Never been there either, but they've got one. I think it's in construction right now. You'll be able to go there real soon. And finally, some words, which I will bother to read for the record. But we're hoping that this solar boom is kind of coming around to this more proactive opportunity for local economic development, which is something that's finally good for agriculture and small farms in particular, and can maybe push back against this larger kind of forces. You saw the number of farms kind of shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And it's because of this kind of recipe here, the solar land rush and this electricity gold rush could empower local stakeholders, communities, and non-traditional development interests and traditional development interests to implement alternative and integrated project models and these economic gardening strategies, which can do other things, put the community first, conservation first, farmers and food first, solar trellises over vineyards, kind of whatever. So just more optionality in our development arsenal. If you're curious to learn more about that, again, you can come to the Solar Farm Summit. But our team, we've got full-time researcher. I travel a lot still, but always happy to try to be as helpful as I can be in this Renaissance kind of time when we got to throw away the old rule book. The old rules really aren't as helpful. The old offense, to switch to a sports metaphor, just isn't working as well as it was. Everything's up for grabs. Everything's being redesigned. There's a medical renaissance. Another conference is all about that. What an exciting time to be alive. The future is bright, as I like to joke all the time. So I think I'll stop there.
This was amazing, Dan. Thank you so much for that amazing overview. I will open it up to Alina and Jake for questions.
Yeah, Dan. So like in these situations where like farmers are opening up their land to solar development, um, I'm assuming that the developer handles all like the maintenance for the solar arrays and all that. And is the power being consumed by the farm too as some sort of deal, or is it getting exported off the property?
Great question. It can be both. There's many different ways to do a solar deal. The larger projects, commercial and utility scale solar, they're generating way more than the farm can use, and it's absolutely being sold on the grid. Sometimes the farmer can get a cut of that. More typical, they're getting like a lease payment. So the ground, their land is being rented over a very long term, say 30 years for above market rate. And they're just getting like a lease payment like anything else. The maintenance, yeah, usually the solar developer is responsible for the system itself, but the farmer is kind of responsible for farming underneath and maybe some of the other vegetation management, not just the farming itself. And that can create long-term savings for the solar developer because the number one carry cost every year is going to be mowing. And we're figuring out now that there's a lot of solar farms, we've figured out, guess what? It's going to cost a lot more to mow all that grass. There's not enough mowers. And in Virginia, we've had some really good rain. And so they were modeling like, oh yeah, it's going to be three mows a year. Yeah, no problem. It's more like 7. And that's when you're talking about 1,000 acres, that could be $1 million delta. So really, the details really matter. but somebody's invented like an all electric lawnmower. It's AI and it's going to be beep beep beeping around there out on the solar farm. It's called Swap Robotics if you want to check out that company. And they have actually they've come to the show though, and I don't know if we inspired them or not, but they've actually got a little haymaking attachment. So they don't have to cut the grass as they go. It's like this little swivel deck, and it's just going to roll the grass over, make this little mini hay as they go. And then the idea is like whenever it's nutritionally ideal, like 2 weeks later, the sheep will come in and like eat the hay that's waiting there for them. So there's just technology and animals can still go together. And that's really what's exciting about this kind of future of farming. But
Thank you.
to back to your original question, double the rent is kind of what's happening. If you can keep farming under the panels, selling that, but you're getting that rent payment for your land, or maybe you are getting some percentage of the kilowatt that you're earning, probably going to be pretty small though. Most developers are not going to give you a piece of the electricity. It's just more money for farmers, and that's a really big deal. Also, those lease payments are every month instead of being susceptible to the whims of food markets. But then I never answered your question about what they call behind the meter. And there's absolutely a lot of just small scale solar. Farmers are doing it themselves, using the power all themselves. If you're a chicken farmer, there's a lot of poultry in Virginia. And sometimes like 30% of their costs every month might be cooling, lighting. Those chicken barns have to be just right. And they're using a lot of electricity. And those on-farm saving, you don't even have to connect to the grid. It could be that off-grid slide that I showed. And it's just going to save you a fortune, especially because the price is going up. Not that I can see the future, but I'm pretty sure electricity prices are going to be going up, y'all, for a long time. We're going to build the robot army. So, Alina, we're going to need a lot of wind too. Make no mistake. And nuclear.
Great questions. Definitely. Alina, did you have any questions?
I do, but before I ask my question, I think thank you, Dan. This is so amazing. I think everything you just said is really serves as great inspiration for me, and believe like many more students attending this event. But I is a question that's kind of like tangent to agrivoltaics. I've been reading some papers and resources on this concept of virtual power plant, and I'm wondering like if this kind of technology is already integrated into solar farms or agrivoltaics or anything like that, or yeah, just I want to hear your thoughts on that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice segue from the previous answer. These behind the meter, off grid. VPPs are connected to the grid, but we do have the technology, and when we are generating too much, we can sell it, back. And some people are getting very sophisticated with how they time it. They actually have batteries behind their VPP, and they're storing cheap electricity during the day and then selling it back at night. And so far, the reason that hasn't taken off at a huge scale is a lot of bureaucracy. We're going to kind of need state laws to kind of open up the market for VPPs because we have kind of fiefdoms. The regional transmission operators, they kind of have monopolies. And there's a federal energy regulatory commission that has lots of rules. And then utilities get to make a lot of their own rules about who connects to their grid and how and what's approved. And, even after we get good laws, sometimes they'll say, yeah, you can do it, but you need $10 billion worth of insurance or something ridiculous that people can't do. So we're going to need policy to really open up virtual power plants and that the whole distributed dream. And it is kind of a problem. These utilities, all monopolies, they like to do what they do, generate power in a few places and send it over the grid and get paid for it. And people saving their own kilowatts is kind of against their profit interests. So it's getting kind of weird, but the technology absolutely works, and you can find all kinds of examples of great virtual power plant setups and some very helpful state policy, and it's definitely the way of the future.
Awesome. Great question, Alina. And if there's not another question, I have a question for you. And it's mainly around storage. So we talked about solar, and solar is amazing. And I love the agrivoltaics piece of it. But how does storage need to play a role? And is that as compatible with ag as solar?
Well, the batteries really aren't performing in any kind of agricultural sense. So it's really just working electrically and economically. Because solar is an intermittent source, if you're interested in offsetting all of your own energy use, to go back to Jacob's question, a farmer's dream is to just have no power bill, then you're probably going to need some batteries to power you at night if you want to go kind of all solar. Um, and it can make, beyond that, in a more commercial setting, the batteries are starting to make projects just pencil better. Again, because it's kind of smoothing out that intermittence. And so just seeing a lot more batteries put into solar projects. They have a much smaller footprint. That's the good news. It's not going to take up a lot of land. And in some places where solar has run really far already, they're putting in requirements that now you have to build storage in with any solar project. California, for example, is that way. So anytime that you do a solar project in California, you have to have storage. I don't know if that's true in residential, but for these commercial and utility scale projects, you have to have batteries included in your plan.
Thank you for that. Storage is definitely one of those things that we will be talking about later in our series this summer. So just wanted to kind of plant that seed for us. Thank you so much, Dan. Did anybody else have another question before we wrap it up?
No, awesome presentation, man. Thank you.
Sure. Happy to do it. Thanks for your interest. And yeah, just keep plugging away, keep the faith, and acquire those skills. It's a renaissance. You never know. Some of your passion may become relevant later, you know. I mean, we could still blow the whole world up, but when I was your age, we were talking about Mad Max and the century of scarcity. I like to mention it often. That's why BP was out there drilling off coast for oil under the ocean, and we can just kind of set all that aside and shift into true sustainable capitalism. There's plenty of money to make, and all these technologies, as I said, that are coming together, the convergence of everything. It's just getting very, very exciting. So yeah, go forward, young people. I'm still young enough, I guess. We got a long way to go, but I do wish I could trade places a little bit, because a lot of it wasn't so clear that all these ways would be so open. But I just see growth as far as the eye can see, especially kind of in this space. So thank you, Remy, and stirring up the young minds. We need every one of you.
You bet. Well, thank you, Dan. And a reminder, just if you want to send me any links to some of the conferences and the opportunities for students to participate, I'll happily share that with the network. And just a plug for next week, we are going to be meeting Catherine McLean, and she runs a company called Dylan Green, which is actually like a headhunter. So they're like a placement company, but for green energy jobs. So very relevant, and she's right in the DC area, so relevant to, I know, Alina, you're in Maryland, right? And Jake in Virginia. So I look forward to seeing you guys next week. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I'll look forward to seeing you all. I hope you have a great rest of your week.